Most women don't climax. 70% of women are not orgasming at all, but you can have that. You've just never been taught how to do it.
Jennelle Gordon is a sex and intimacy coach and author who helps people unfuck their sex lives.
This is a vibrator. They are the #1 leading cause of women not being able to climax.
What's the most effective toys?
So the best toys, in my opinion, are like these kind of toys.
Wow.
Calm down.
How do you last longer?
Oh my God. Men are only lasting about 5 to 7 minutes. That's not very long, right? Stop using vibrators, give up porn, and then...
Before we dive in, I've got a quick favor to ask. I was actually looking at the numbers, and it blows my mind that 75% of you who listen regularly haven't subscribed yet. If you enjoy the show and want to support what we do, the simplest, free way, things to do, to help, is by hitting the subscribe button. And here's my promise to you. If you do that, my team and I will work even harder to bring you the best guest, the conversation you actually want to hear, and make this show better every single week. So take a second, please, hit the subscribe button. But now, let's get into it. Welcome to the Market Exchanges podcast. Today's guest has turned pain into purpose. From surviving abuse and sex trafficking to becoming a Tantra master, holistic healer, and educator. She's also the founder of Beyond Freedom International, which is a nonprofit dedicated to helping survivors heal and thrive. She's also an author. She wrote a book which is called Unfuck Your Sex Life. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jennelle Gordon. Jennelle, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us. It's an honor to be here. I love your energy. I love everything about you. So this should be a great conversation.
It definitely will.
Yes.
Jennelle, most people know you for being a Tantra master, right? A healer, a sex educator. But before all the labels, before all the titles,
Yes.
who were you?
I had very humble beginnings. I had I like to say I had an intense childhood in the foster system, which is not very pleasant if you've ever experienced it, and got placed into a well-meaning family, but basically grew up in a cult, a fundamental Christian cult. So kind of had a strong aversion to religious dogma, not Christianity or not love or just like the dogma, because I grew up so afraid, because I sadly, had experienced a lot of physical and sexual trauma from a very early age, from very young child, that the two things together sort of were very like I was very much so afraid all the time. Those are my earliest memories. Like my son's age, I just remember I was always afraid. I was afraid of everything, probably from the trauma, but then I was also afraid of God sending me to hell. Like these are my earliest memories. So it was very intense and a lot of struggles and a lot of pain. And basically I was watching something on Tony Robbins' show, or not show, this challenge he's doing. He's offering it free. He does it every year. And him and his wife were sharing, and they were talking about their relationship, and they were helping other people call in with their questions. It was just so beautiful. And I looked at her life, and Tony it's crazy. He wasn't attracted to her. Like Sage was not his type at all. But they became friends, and then he was dating other girls, and he would tell her about his dates, but they had like a deep love for each other, kind of like what you have for like a family member, right? It's really deep. And then it slowly blossomed into something else because he realized everything that was on his list in a woman, like not exactly the looks, but everything else was her. And so that's how they got together, which I thought was so interesting. But as she talked, I realized like her childhood and her role models of family were so perfect. Like her parents had so much love. They adopted children, but they always made time for themselves and for their family, for their date time, for their intimate sexual time. And Sage was talking about that. And so she came from such this place of seeing a man and a woman deeply love and deeply connected and not putting their children first, putting their love and their intimacy and their sex first, and then giving that love to the kids, that when she came out, she had so much love to give that Tony, not growing up that way, his childhood was awful. It like showered onto him. And even though he wasn't sexually attracted to her, it melted that away. And so back to like how I grew up, I was thinking about this yesterday. I was like, wow, we see how women are today, right? And we see a lot of them are just so hard and tough and masculine, right? We don't see this like very soft, feminine, at least Americanized women, right? Modern women. And I think that we have to kind of go back and look at their primary relationships, caregivers, and what that relationship was like. And because Sage had such like almost, obviously not perfect, but such a beautiful upbringing, like that bled over into her adulthood and to how she has a relationship with Tony and then how they serve the world. And so back to like my story, I realized like I kind of had the opposite of that, like completely opposite. Not kind of, I did. Just trauma after trauma. And then, you know, running away from home because I just wanted to be loved and feel like I belonged, and getting picked up by traffickers in Vegas. And as I was an adult entertainer, I was a dancer, and I just wanted love so bad. Like I fell to the hands of this like pimp who used me, and I would do like anything to be loved. Literally almost killed myself multiple times at his hands because I just wanted love, right? And so kind of to see how that shaped like my early adult life was all based on the trauma I experienced as a child and just searching for someone to love me and to be loved. So I think, I mean, I still always have these epiphanies like, wow, women who have stable, loving, intimately connected relationships from their parents or caregiver, could be one, really good one, will have a stable relationship with their spouse and will look for that, right? I posted about this on my story. You don't go craving what you had. Does that make sense? If you came from like, I don't know what your childhood was like, but if you had a loving, you know, mother and father who were there for you, you saw that they displayed that beautiful polarity of masculine, feminine energy and loving each other. And from that love, loving you and siblings, you're going to go find that. You're going to mirror that. You're going to model that because that's what you saw. But if you didn't do that, you go like that song, that old song is like, you go looking for love in all the wrong places. Like that's literally what I did. So when you say like, who was I before? I was broken. I was like traumatized. I was just unconfident. Nothing I am today, right? I lacked connection with me, you know, with who I was and who I am. And I didn't have a relationship with myself because I was just so torn inside. And in order to like look at yourself, you have to be honest with yourself, right? And most people will avoid that at all costs.
So what was your experience with sex trafficking? Like what happened exactly?
I think it's important for people to understand that being trafficked is not like what you see in the movies Taken. Like, does that happen? Yes. But that's not how it happened for me. These pimps literally, and my pimp told me when he was in prison, they studied how to target women like myself who had no family, who had been physically and sexually abused as children, who were part of the foster system, ding, 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 who are alone. These are all like, it's like a target mark. You know, if you've ever gone hunting, there's like, I did like a giant target on my head. So they studied to kind of learn how to like, oh, this person doesn't have any support, basically. She's alone and she wants love. Because we know as humans, we all want to be loved. We want to know that we're enough and we want to know that we'll be loved. That's why we do anything in this life. Tell me what it is and I'll bring it back to that. So what he did basically is, I'm a veteran. I came out of the military and I was injured, and the military basically just let me go again just let me go, left me broken, didn't rehabilitate me. Very sad. So I came out broken, right? And broken physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually, spiritually. I was fucked, right? And this guy comes along and just sort of like swoops in, is like, oh, gives me this, everything I wanted, love, this dream of a family, all these things is all I ever wanted. And I believed it because I just wanted to be loved. And so very slowly, they start to kind of pull out the rug from under you. In the human trafficking world, they call it the Romeo or the finesse pimping. They change it from decade to decade. When I was going through it, it was called Romeo or finesse pimping. And it's like, finesse pimping is like, they like, don't come and start just holding guns to your head, right? It's just like, hey, let me take you to dinner. So pimps will typically invest money in you in the beginning, a little bit, because they have to like pull you in. And it's all about emotional hooks and triggers and things that keep you in line, keep you in check. And then they back it up with violence if they need to, right? So that's basically what happened. I got caught up. I started stripping, and, you know, that was a very like, just in Vegas back then, you know, the girls were making a lot of money, and it was like kind of like the thing to do, you know. I knew I was working with girls from Orange County when I was still living in Vegas that were real estate investors and agents, and they would just fly to Vegas on the weekends just to make money to pay their, to pay their mortgages on all their properties. So it was very much so like I stripped with teachers, like you name it. If I tell you like some of the people, like girls, trust fund girls who maybe didn't want to do what their parents wanted, so they left. So I worked with a lot of individuals. But what happened was basically I just got sucked into his lies and to him giving me this false sort of love that I didn't want to lose, but it wasn't really love because it's not love, right? Love isn't transactional. And so, yeah, I just ended up being in debt to him and just giving him like every dime. It was like I had to, or I would get beat up, right? To the point that like, I did some crazy things. Like when I think about it now, like I never drank or did drugs. Like I was a sober stripper, which is probably kind of funny because you don't think of that when you think of dancers. You think of girls just like popping pills, drinking, but I wasn't. So I think experiencing all that sober was like a lot more trauma for me to unpack.
How did you walk out from it?
Basically, I got connected to someone who saw me in a club. And this was actually when I had left Vegas and I was in Texas. I had gotten away from my pimp, faked my own death. That's again, like all
that's exactly what I wanted to know. Like, how did you walk out from it? Like you.
That is all like in my talk. It's like a lot to get into, but I basically realized that by making myself, quote, disappear and my this is so funny. This dancer I worked with in Newport, her name was Silk, Monica. She was like, look, if we show him that you are gone, that you died, or like you had an overdose or something, he's not going to care. And when we kind of plotted this and did it, if you will, he didn't say anything. He didn't call. He didn't text, nothing. And that for me was like the light bulb, like, I know it sounds so extreme and also so simple. Like, how did you not know he didn't care about you? But that was the light bulb for me. And so from there, I needed a plan to escape because now he thinks I'm dead. If he knows I'm alive, he's going to come after me. So that's when I went to Thailand and kind of, I lived there for a year and I started studying Tantra. And this is kind of what like really drastically changed my life. And how I got there, that's a whole nother story too. But basically just dedicated a year of my life to healing and recovering from this fuckery that I had been like my entire life. Mm-hmm. And so it was a very intense year, like very intense in a good way. Before was just intense, traumatic. This was intense, like adjusting, course correcting, healing, getting rid of all the limiting doubts, beliefs, things I was going to hell, understanding that sex is a tool. It's very powerful. It's not bad or good. It just is. And how you use that and how you master that energy is what makes or breaks you. not what you like, not the act of it itself.
Gotcha.
Right. And so I started to look at sex in a very different spiritual way. And that is how I started to become this master that I am today.
What is Tantra, and is there a science behind, or is just like more a spiritual theory?
It is kind of a science. It's a science of a recipe of I'm going to take this, I'm going to take that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to move this energy, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to shake it all up, and I'm going to create this life that is like abundant in every area. Because most people don't have abundance in relationships and intimacy. They might have a lot of them, but they don't have like connection quality. If you ask yourself, when's the last time you felt like intimately connected to someone? It wasn't sex. It was just a very deep, vulnerable, intimate, spiritual connection that like pierced you through your soul, and you felt alive, you felt connected, you felt divine, you felt like you were God. Most people be like, I've never felt that shit in my life, right? But you can have that. You just never been taught how to do it, how to attain that, right? And those are the kind of relationships that we like to foster.
But it's a selfish type of, how can I say? It's a selfish type of spiritual theory then, right?
People look for relationships like I did because they want to get something, right? They're like, I want a wife who's 5'4", blonde, this, that, never been married, never had kids, wants this, wants that, wants to take care of me, wants to have sex with me, wants to give me blowjobs, but doesn't want to have like too much assertion because I want her to be submissive. And they have like this list of things they want. And women do the same thing. I want my man to be 6'2", tall, dark, handsome, single, never been married, no kids, no this. I want him to provide for me, but not too much. I want my own money and my own freedom. And I don't want to have kids, or maybe I do. Like, it's all these things that we have, right? But when we think about what we really want in a relationship, it's a list of things to meet our needs, right? It's to meet our needs, both parties. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying it's what we do. Now, when you think about relationships, you go into them thinking about what is this woman going to get from me? Especially you. I think you're single. You don't have a ring on. Mm-hmm. If I'm going to get married, right? What is she going to bring to me? Correct? Is she going to bring me a child? Is she going to carry on my lineage? Is she going to be sexy but not too slutty? Is she gonna, like all these things, right? And that's what you think because it's what you want in a partner, and she does the same for you. But when you go into a relationship, you kind of have two people wanting something out of the other person. But a lot of times those people go into the relationship sort of half full, like your bottle of water is like half full. So they go into the relationship already empty, or already on empty, if you will, looking to be filled up by you. And I might do the same, right? It's rare that you have two people that go into a relationship who are like, I just like to use sage, and because most people have gone through trauma. It's very rare to find women who haven't. Very rare. I ask the question in my retreats, and I might get one hand or a half hand. All the women have said they've gone through some kind of physical or sexual abuse. It's sad. It's startling. So you have these broken people coming into relationships. So get back to your question, like, is this selfish? No, this path is about connecting with the most present, vulnerable, connected, surrendered part of you. That like divine like essence. Like in Tantra, we say that for men is like the Shiva energy. It's like the divine, unwavering, unchanging, unfuckwithable, omnipresent, never thrown off his path. Doesn't matter what happens, he's here. And for the woman, it's like the Shakti energy, which is like always changing, always moving, ups and downs, highs and low, array of emotions, array of sensuality, array of color and sex and bliss and anger and sadness. And that's the beauty of the divine woman. Men say, I don't want her to be so emotional, but if she was, she'd be just like you, then you could just go fuck a man, right? It's just about like tuning that energy in and channeling it and how you react to it, right? So Tantra is a selfish path, if you will. I don't think it's selfish. It's a self-centered path, meaning you get to be the most divine, badass version of you and filled up, not empty, and vulnerable, being who you really are. When you connect with someone that way, it's real. But that doesn't happen today. People go on apps, people go on dates. In my retreats, we say it's a masked version of themselves. It's who they're portraying to you. That's why you get into a relationship and you're like, oh, this girl's great. You start telling some of your friends, yeah, I think I found the one. She's like, great, our sex is good. I'm attracted to her. She has some values. She's slutty, but not too slutty. All this stuff guys want, right? But then like 9 months in, they're like, bro, I don't know what fucking happened.
I mean, it sounds pretty similar to like personal development if you look like in a normal way of people seeing it, right? People that, for example, I didn't never study Tantra. I don't know what it is. For me, it's something that resonates with that is going to be called like personal development.
Tantra is the most powerful personal development there is if you do it right. And that's a huge fucking caveat because most people get consumed by their habits. They don't consume their habits. That's kind of like not consuming the potato chip, but they don't like, and I'll say it in a different way. Most people are a slave to their habits. They're not the master of their habits, right? So why Tantra is because Tantra uses the most powerful energy on the fucking planet, which is what? Not nuclear weapons, if you were thinking that.
Tell me.
It's the sexual energy. It's why you're sitting here. Do you know that you had a 250 million chance of being here today?
Yeah.
So did I.
I'm a lucky motherfucker.
So did my son. Right?
Yeah.
The sperm, that's your chance. 1 out of 250 million that you implanted and that you made it and that you're here. That's pretty fucking powerful.
I was thinking
in my
about
book.
this last time.
Right? That's very powerful. The sexual energy is the most powerful energy on the planet. If you look back at the history of the world, you've seen some of the most, we were talking about it before we started rolling, some of the most powerful entities, meaning like the Roman Empire, right? A lot of them were taken down by women or by lust or by the sexual something, right? Hitler, they say, was really controlled by Eva, his wife. You think of biblical things like Samson and Delilah. Like this guy gave up everything for some ass. Like, are you serious? Like, so sexual energy is so fucking powerful, right? And it can be used to destroy empires and armies and countries and to cause a genocide, or it can be used to do the opposite. It can be used to create some of the most intense lovemaking experiences where you literally feel like you're going to die because the pleasure is so intense and so connected to godlike consciousness that your body can't handle it. You're like, I'm leaving this dimension because this pleasure is so real.
So can you do this with the casual sex, or
No.
that is more into like, oh, that's my partner. Let me build this atmosphere of perfect potential sex chemistry.
Well, yeah. So to get back to your original question, and then I'll answer that one. It's not just about the sex. That was just one experience, but it's about the union that it creates. Not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually, and the places you can go. And then how you take energy that is just this, right? Sexual energy, and crystallize it and transmute it into something physical. So you can take your sexual energy and make more money, right? So it's very powerful. To answer your question, can it be done with casual sex? No, because there's in the consciousness of casual sex is so low. Right? You talk about, I believe in energy. I believe energy is everything and everything is energy. So there's a scale of consciousness, if you will. Dr. David Hawkins sort of calibrated consciousness. If you've never read any of his works, Letting Go, Power versus Force, these are a few of his, I think, more popular ones. And he's now transitioned, but Dr. David Hawkins was known for being able to calibrate consciousness, the lowest vibration being, which is a huge one, is shame. It's not hate, because if you think of hate, there's an energy attached to it, right? If I hate you, I'm going to do something about it, right? Revenge would be above hate, because hate is just like the idea, oh, I hate this person. Revenge is like, I'm going to act on that, right? But shame's at the freaking bottom. Shame, guilt, all these things are just, I am so ashamed of masturbating in my grandma's basement, or of thinking about so-and-so, my teacher or someone at church when I was, like, people have these real shames and they feel it in their body and it affects their sex life. So shame is just like, shame and guilt is hiding, feeling like I am not deserving, I'm not worthy, and not doing anything, right? That's why in the red light district, everything's dark, right? Have you ever noticed if you go into strip clubs? I mean, I worked there for a decade. Everything's dark. They don't have the lights on, right? Because it's like, this is like shameful. We need to keep the lights low. We need to keep everything low, the vibration low, right? Darkness abhors the light. So when you talk about the level of consciousness, you have shame at the very bottom and gratitude at the highest. Love is up there with gratitude, but gratitude's higher, because in gratitude, it's like, it's this feeling of like so much like connection to something else for something that's been done to you, that you're like giving that out to the universe. So it's like another level. So when you calibrate consciousness, you understand that energy is just movable on this scale. So sexual energy is like movable on the scale. If you're having low, like, what did you call it? Casual sex, there's no love involved. There's no gratitude. There's no altruism. There's no vulnerability, very little. Because casual is basically, you don't really show yourself to who you are, to that person. If you're having casual sex, you're not like, come on in, let's check out my baby album. Let's talk about like some of my deepest pains and fears and joys and aspirations. No, you're like, let's just do this and go, right?
Let's just say I know the skills of Tantra, right? That's Tantra does not affect in casual sex because there is vulnerability involved in Tantra. Is that correct?
Yeah, but and let me just
understand,
back.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that if you have casual sex, you're a bad person.
No,
you can have casual sex and be a great person. I'm just saying the vibration. Because remember, I'm an energy master because I think in realms of energy.
Sure.
So the energy of casual sex is nothing that's growing and evolving and changing and altruistic. It's just low. It's just, I want to meet my needs. You want to meet your needs. I'm not going to hurt you, but we're just doing this thing and that's it.
Okay.
So that vibration is not the scale of what the elevated Tantra. But to answer your question, there are different paths of Tantra. There's left-handed Tantra, right-handed Tantra. There's like some of this stuff I won't speak on air, but if you come to my retreats, I will, because it's very sacred and it's also kind of can be dangerous. So I don't talk about it because I don't want mass people to hear it and go out and do wild stuff. But there's basically, you can have the skill of Tantra and not do anything with it. And that can lead to like black Tantra. So they have white Tantra, red Tantra, black Tantra, or black magic. And we don't deal with that. So so you can have that kind of experience, but that is going to swallow you up. All pleasure is eventually choked by pain, the Buddha said. If it's all just about pleasure and seeking pleasure and wanting more and wanting better sex and casual sex and things like that, in the end, this can be very dangerous. Not just from the realms I'm talking about, like black Tantra, black magic, but just also for your mental health. Because sex is supposed to be sacred. It's supposed to be something like you should be able to have sex in a church. That's how sacred it should be. I would have sex on an altar in a church any day, because to me, that's the highest form of connection to God I can get. So if you think about just having casual sex, you're legitimately, with a lot of people, you're legitimately basically giving like a piece of who you are to every single person that you engage with sexually.
If someone is struggling with their sex life,
yes,
what would be one piece of advice you will be able to give them?
when people are struggling with sex, we have to step back and take a look at the rest of their life. Because sex is very complex.
Sure.
Sex is complex. Procreation is complex. Birth control is complex. Like, I'm not talking about the pill. I'm just saying, you know, all these things are very complex. So when you say you're struggling with your sex life, I would say take a step back and look at what's going on around you in your life. For instance, if someone's saying, oh, I'm having problems with sex, I want to fix it, I'm going to say, okay, well, tell me about your life. I'm going to say, tell me what's going on in what's going on in your life personally. How's your physical health? I'm going to find out what's going on there. What's going on in your like mental health? What challenges are you struggling? What's going on in your emotional health? What's going on in your energy health? Like, how are you feeling? What's, you know, and when you start to kind of look at those things, because at my work, I have a kind of a lot of certifications. I'm a holistic nutritionist, a yoga master outside of Tantra. I'm an energy and breathwork facilitator and a somatic healer working with healing trauma from the body, in addition to everything, a Reiki master, and I'm a Tantra master. So I have a lot. So when I'm looking at someone, I'm looking at them holistically and seeing like what's going on with this person. For instance, I had a woman who reached out to me this week. She's been married for 33 years. She's absolutely miserable because she says she is having pain every time she has sexual intercourse and she is not feeling pleasure. Imagine you've been married for 33 years and you just are having this realization.
Wow.
I don't want to have sex. Every time I have it, I'm in pain. Every time I have sex with my husband, I am afraid, I feel disconnected, and I feel zero pleasure. These are real problems that people have. So I'm right away going back, first of all, in my mind. I'm going way back. I'm like, what was your first connection to sex?
Gotcha.
I'm starting there and kind of making my way back. So it's a very complex question to ask. That's why I said, are you struggling with ED? Are you struggling? And that's why this work is so complex. Because there's just so many things to look at. I look at the human as like a wheel, and there's so many little pies, like a pizza, if you will. And there's so many slices. And this slice is like their health. This is their mental health. This is their emotions. This is their energy body. This is their spirituality.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Then you have work. Then you have family. Then you have all these things. Then you have beliefs and preconceived conditioning and programming and religion and dogma and sexual trauma. Add all that in the mix and you have a crazy ass pizza. And I solved that. You know, I go in and help them solve it. I help them see, because if they solve it, it will stick. If I solve it, then it's just me telling them something, right?
Now, from your experience, what do you think is the most common mistake that people do, but they actually think is a good thing?
People think intimacy is sex. They're very, very fucking confused on this. And it's very frustrating as someone who's, takes her work very seriously, takes her clients very seriously, takes their challenges very seriously. It's like intimacy is not sex. And if you believe that those are the same, then we have a lot of work to do.
What's your definition of intimacy?
Intimacy is connection, closeness, and proximity to someone or something, right? Sex is a physical anatomical act of genitalia attaching to some other body part or another genitalia, mostly for procreation, but also could be for pleasure. So sex and intimacy are totally different things. And I think that's the biggest misconception. But
I agree with you.
We go back to like the differences, the polarity is what we call it in Tantra, the sexual polarity, meaning the oppositions that make men and women, Shiva and Shakti. It's like women, we need this intimacy. We need to feel intimately connected to you before we even think about warming up the idea to opening our legs and letting you have sex with us. Where men need sex like they need oxygen. They want sex to even fathom the idea of sitting down and getting vulnerable and being intimate and having intimate experiences with you. So men need sex to go to intimacy. Women need intimacy to go to sex. How do we bridge that gap? And that, I think, is the biggest misconception, is that our partners think we're needing each other's needs, but we're really not.
Interesting. What's the common question that women keep asking you about sex?
Women don't enjoy sex today, guys. Newsflash, the younger women don't even enjoy it, but they have it as an obligation because they think if they have sex with this person, they're going to get the ring or they're going to get the money, the sugar daddy experiences, whatever, because there's a lot of weird relationships today, right? So women are having sex more as an obligation. And I'm empowered. I can fuck 50 guys if I want because I can do it. Yeah, you can. But I can also go jump off a cliff because I can do it. Doesn't mean that's a great idea, right? But there's this narrative that's been preached to women that you don't have to have children. You can stay focused on your career. You can fuck anyone you want. You can be promiscuous and you're not a hoe, but it's just not true. We know that men look at women who've slept with a lot of men very fucking differently than women look at men who've slept with a lot of women. It maybe is a double standard, but it just is so. Can women be forgiven if they've had a promiscuous past? Absolutely. Many faith-based men, they know their wives that had that past, but they've healed, they've prayed, they've done the work, and they've, accomplished that. I know porn stars who I worked with, not me, but I know of a very famous porn star who was, very fucking famous in porn, and she had 2 kids and she had a wild life, and now she's married. Her kids are grown. So can it happen? Yes. Is it the normal? No. So I think for women, it's like women aren't enjoying sex. They're weaponizing it. They're using it to get what they need. Most women don't climax. They don't experience climax. And the small percentage of women, so it's about 70% of women who, only can climax through clitoral stimulation, which is basically the same way that you experience climax. Very intense up and then very intense down. And then there's about 20% of women who are not climaxing at all, like never. Imagine going through life. You first, maybe unfortunately as a young girl, you experience some kind of trauma, sexual trauma. So now you have that. Then you hit puberty. You start having your cycle. You're not told anything other than here's some tampons that are filled with, by the way, lots of pesticides and chemicals that are going to give you cervical cancer later, but use these and figure it out. The kids at school probably laugh about it. Whatever, it's weird, it's a taboo, you're bleeding, you're dirty, this kind of thing. Then they get a little older and they start experimenting. Then they have Snapchat. Then they see all these women making millions of dollars on OnlyFans and they're like, oh, I can be sexually promiscuous, right? Then they go out that, they get more trauma. Then they finally meet someone who's like, okay, let's get married. They get married. And they work through trauma, but their sex life is terrible because now she doesn't want to have sex with you because she got the ring, she got the money, she has the kid, and now she's sitting pretty. Meanwhile, you're over here alone wanting sex because men need sex like they need oxygen. She's wanting intimacy. You guys divorce. She's not orgasming at all, mostly from trauma and because she doesn't know her body and because desensitization from using vibrators. Then she hits menopause or close to it, and they say, we need to take your uterus, and then she dies.
What's a high body count for men and what's a high body count for women, according to you?
I think it's too high if it feels too high, meaning like you're the only person that knows how you feel after you give yourself to someone. When you have sex, it's a surrendering of your body to someone else. It is. For men might not agree with that, but yeah, in a way it is. If you're climaxing, you're giving some of yourself to a woman. And hopefully you guys are thinking about some kind of family planning, because if not, you're getting her pregnant and then you're really giving yourself to that woman. But it's a surrendering of your body. And more importantly, your energy body, your mental body, your emotional body, your spiritual body. So we're in this culture that preaches fast everything, fast food, fast get what you want, have sex with whoever you want. And as long as you're respectful and consensual, it's okay. The problem is that you take those bodies with you. That's a perfect example. So your body count could be 20, but for the rest of your life, you're carrying around the energy of those 20 people.
Is there a reset button?
There is a reset. I think it's about doing the work, healing. I've done a lot of healing work to cut cords, to cut energy cords, to pray, to release that energy. But a lot of times, and they've shown it takes almost as many years to like break energy cords with someone as you've been with them. So if you're married with someone for 10 years, they say energetically, you're still entwined with that person, even more so. And so it takes time to like break those attachments and that's why a lot of people go back to their exes. Even people who are married, they get divorced. Second marriages often happen to be the same person they were married to previously.
That's crazy.
So when you think about how high is your body count, well, how many bodies do you want to carry around with you? Maybe that's a question. And I know for men, it's a chip on the shoulder, it's an ego. And I say, listen, I'm not saying to do or to not sleep with more women. I'm just saying you have to carry that with you for the rest of your life. So that's up to you. I think for women, less is more. And they say, well, why don't you say that for men? Sorry, I need to adjust. Apologize. They might say, well, why don't you say that for men? Well, it's just a different standard. Does it mean it's fair? No. Does it mean it's true? Yes. Women are looked at differently if you slept with a lot of men. If I say I've slept with 100 men, I haven't. But if I said that, you would be like, you would feel some type of way. And I understand. If you said you slept with 100 men, or 100 men, I'd probably feel some type of way too. But if you said 100 women, I would be like, that's probably standard. I just saw, I can't think of her name, but Sadie, the psychologist, said that that women who are 23 have slept with more men than women who are 55. Like imagine you're a 55-year-old woman. You've been on the planet almost 60 years, and there's girls in their 20s who've had more sexual partners than you have. That's a culture shift, right?
Interesting. Now, same question. What's the most common question men ask about sex?
How to last longer. How to last longer. How to last longer. Yeah, that's it. How to last longer.
So how do you last longer?
Oh my God. This is such a loaded question because it's so simple, but it's also so complex.
Sure.
It's definitely bioindividuality is a huge component. I want to know what you're eating, what you're drinking, if you're working out, if you're not, what practices, what shames that you're subscribed to, how much trauma you've had in your life, what's your mental health? Are you on SSRIs, meaning, drugs for antidepressants? Are you taking any antidepressant drugs? Should you be taking some, and hopefully a holistic, clean version? Because there are things that you can take versus those which have an adverse reaction. Are you using plastics? How much meat are you eating because of the hormones? What is your sexual masturbation? I hate that word, masturbation practice like? Are you addicted to corn? Like, there's a lot of things I go through to find out. But as a blanket, as a rule of thumb, the first thing I'm going to say, just keeping it really simple, is you got to train. You got to train your lingam like you train your body, like you train your mind. People, men especially, they're disconnected from their dick. Their dick is just something they use to get off. And I don't blame y'all. No one's told you any better. No one showed you. You probably didn't have a mom like me. My son's very lucky. That's like, hey, this is what you should be doing. This is what you shouldn't. When my son hits around 12, maybe 13, no, scratch that. Probably about 13, 14, because my son's development is very good, but he is not been sexually conditioned. And people think that because of what I do, but it's the opposite. My son's very still intimately connected to me. He still needs me. We co-sleep. We do attachment parenting. He's still a child, even though he's almost 10. on fucking purpose, right? So probably when he hits closer to 16, I'll send him to go train with my Tantra masters so he can learn semen retention, so he can understand how to masturbate correctly. Again, I hate that word, but that's what people know, sexual pleasure correctly, how he can learn to sort of start preserving his sexual energy, how he can learn testicle massage, all this stuff like that. I'll be married by then, but I'm going to pass that off to someone who's an expert. I think parents should do that. I do think parents should talk to their children, but I also do think that they should bring in the guns because it's weird. Most of your kids look at you, they don't want to hear about sex from you. You should still tell them, but you should also bring in support. Thankfully, there's people like myself and a lot of things that are starting to pop up. But back to their original question, I think men are very disconnected from their dick because they've had trauma from their dick. I talked about this on my last podcast. Just think about the first trauma that your dick ever experienced. And in Sanskrit, we say lingam, your lingam ever experienced. Lingam is the Sanskrit word for dick, right? For penis, if you will. Like just the trauma of circumcision, if you were circumcised. Just think about this for a moment. You're hours old and a doctor comes with a knife or the things, the forceps things, or the little clippers, and he literally cuts the foreskin off your lingam, off your dick, within the first minutes of you being born. And you're screaming and you're crying and there's blood going everywhere. I didn't see it because my son is not circumcised. You should know. That's trauma. And your body remembers that. If you don't believe me, there's several people who've written books on it called The Body Keeps Score. That's, I think, one of the best ones. And it talks about your body holding on to trauma and remembering that, right? So that's a trauma. Other traumas include your first experience with your lingam and how you were made to feel about that. Maybe when you were a kid, your mom or your dad said, stop touching your dick, stop doing that, stop touching your pee-pee, or whatever weird names they called it. That's a trauma, calling it something other than what it is. It's a great question. It is, and I got this podcast I did with Sean, I got so much hate from women and stuff and saying I was a, misogynist because I talked about oral sex and men wanting it, right? Well, the bottom line is the pressure is on men. It is legitimately up to them to get the erection, right? They have to be relaxed enough so that their mind, because the erection and the orgasm happens first in the mind. The mind, if they've told you it's any other way, they've lied to you. The mind tells the body what to do. You can tell yourself to heal. I've been having this little thing with my contacts and I don't know what's going on. And I think it's my vanity, my lashes. So I'm in the process of just taking them off and going back to normal lashes, my own. But I haven't been able to wear it. And I've just been telling my body, my eyes every day, just heal, heal, heal. I'll take care of you, heal. You can talk to your body. So your mind tells the body what to do. So the mind tells the lingam to get the erection. But so men have to be relaxed just enough, but not too much so that they can get the erection. And then they have to be able to last once they've started to have, to have the sexual intercourse, if you will, right? They have to be able to last long enough. Well, what's happening is men are only lasting about 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes. That's not very long, right? So they're not conditioned. It's like a sport, right? If I say go run a marathon now, you're probably decent because you work out, but we haven't really trained to run that long, right?
Sure.
We might run a couple miles before that we work out, but we're not like running 25. So it's a conditioning thing. Men have to be conditioned to last longer. So then, but we're not talking about and then men, I got some flack about this too. Men have to make sure they're not hurting women. And people are like, what do you mean? I've never hurt a woman. You probably have. Most women don't get wet anymore. They're not getting lubrication. Again, we can go back to the plethora of things that's affecting that. First of all, they don't want to have sex with you. Second of all, they don't want to have sex at all. Then a lot of them have hormonal imbalances because of all the hormones and water and food and meat and dairy and all the lists of things that are happening. So they're not getting, they're not lubricated, right? Which hurts women, right? Or the size is incorrect. It's not functioning. They haven't been educated like what I do at my retreats on size mattering. So they're hurting that way. Or it could be the angle, could be they have a trauma. So you could be hurting her. And men, again, have to think of this, right? Or you could just be larger and you know you're hurting her. Right? So it's all these things that come into play. And the focus is kind of always on the men because it's like, oh, men want sex. They need to lead. It's up to them to make it work. But it's not, right? It's two people, right? Last I checked. And that's why it's two people to get pregnant. So two people are responsible, right? It's both. So women, we have actually more to do in a different way. And I wish people would have let me, watch the whole podcast instead of saying I just hate on women. Women, we don't do as much physically, right? We kind of just lay there, if you will. I know that sounds bad, but it's true. We don't have to get an erection to have sex. We should be relaxed enough, but also turned on enough to create lubrication, right? But women are using all kinds of lube now, and a lot of it is toxic chemicals that's further causing an imbalance and all kinds of stuff, which makes it more uncomfortable, right? So we do have to just kind of lie there, but we do have to get lubricated. But men are doing the anatomical part. Now, when it talks about women getting better, you say, why do men just have to get better? Well, women should be working on the tonality of their vaginal walls, yoni eggs. And then doctors used to tell you to use Kegels. In my practice and in my work, I say yoni eggs. Yoni eggs are little eggs that you insert inside you. They're stones, they're crystals, so they're charged with energy, with an energy of healing, basically healing energies that you put inside you, and you use them. It's like a weight. It's like weightlifting for your yoni, for your inside. That's what works on keeping the walls toned. If you've had kids, you have to. If you have one kid, you have to do it. 2 kids, all these things. If you don't want to lose your uterus, you should do that, because the prolapsed uterus is the #1 most avoidable surgery for women. You don't have to lose your uterus. You just have to work on those muscles. It's a muscle, correct? So the responsibility should be on both parties. But because women, sex is more sort of taboo for them, where it's like men, we know men want sex, right? Obviously. But women are like, I'm just here for the ride, if you will. Pun intended, right? It's not really like the burden of proof isn't upon them, but it really should be. They're responsible for their own pleasure, but they're not. They should be, right? So I think that's something that is a very good point you brought up. It's like women should be responsible, just like they're responsible in keeping themselves fit and their bodies fit. Like you don't want a wife who gains 20 pounds after you get married, or 30 pounds. Even after she has a child, you want her to lose that weight. I said it. And I'm going to get crucified for that. But you didn't marry a 200-pound woman. You married maybe a 140-pound woman, a 150-pound, whatever, depending on her height and her muscle and all that. So why should you want to be with a 200-pound woman after she's had kids? You don't. She should lose the weight. It's the same thing with her uterus, right? You don't want her vaginal walls to not be tight anymore, just like she doesn't want you to not have an erection anymore, correct? That's your responsibility. You need to learn how to keep your erection strong. You need to learn how to last longer than 5 minutes. Women need to learn how to keep their yoni tight and how to learn to heal so that they can start to experience pleasure. And that is a process.
Love it. Jennelle, it's the first time we were doing this, and we got some real unfiltered question from the audience, actually.
Okay, great.
Are you ready for some honest answer?
Yes.
Let's do it. So the first question from the audience is, how small is too small?
Oh my gosh. We should pull out my book for this. Okay, so I do like and I am plugging my treat because I have one coming up in Tulum for Valentine's Day. So if you don't have a partner, you should come. If you do have a partner, you should. Basically, we do this like 2.5 long exercise and lecture on this, but I'll just condense it for now.
Yes,
for time's
please.
sake. So how small is too small depends on the smallness of the woman you're with. How big is too big for a guy depends on how big the yoni of the woman you're with is. So size does absolutely fucking matter, but it's about the size to size ratio. This is taken directly from the Kama Sutra. There's a whole science. There is a science to that. There's a science to it. There's essentially 3 sizes, small, medium, and large for men and women. And it's about how you're paired correctly.
Love that. We talk about man responsibility, right? The men get blamed for bad sex most of the time.
Yes.
And coming back to that, but if woman can finish, is that really the man's fault? Or does she have to do something about it to making sure that she's feeling connected in order for her to be able to finish?
Okay, so you're saying if she cannot climax, is it the man's fault? Or is it...
Yeah.
Or what was
if she cannot climax, is the man's fault? Or does she not even know her own body in order for her to climax?
Yeah, it's the latter. It's not the man's fault. We have to stop blaming men. Like, stop blaming men. Believe all men. You heard it here first. No, it's not the man's fault. It's like this with my son. I think this is a decent example. If my son has a stomach ache and he gets mad at me for having a stomach ache and he says it's my fault, I'm like, that's not my fault. You, first of all, didn't tell me that you had one. How would I know you've had a stomach ache? You have to tell me, then I can help you solve that. He's a minor, right? But if we go to a woman's body, a woman often has trauma or just A has trauma or B doesn't know her body. Those are the 2 biggest hindrances in not being able to climax and being inorgasmic. So if you haven't shared this information with your partner, which many women won't because they have to be vulnerable. And again, they have to take the mask down and show who they really are, which we know doesn't happen. So a man doesn't know. He doesn't know like, oh, she had trauma. I need to heal with her. And there's ways to do that. Yes, there are. And then if she doesn't explore her own body and know what makes her have pleasure, how can she expect a total stranger in another body to master her pleasure when she hasn't mastered her own? And so that's why it's very important for women to experience pleasure themselves. And that's why I have my yoni wands and my crystal stones that are designed for women to experience sexual pleasure for that reason alone.
Talking about toys, what's the most effective toys?
I think the most effective toys are the ones that don't turn on. So not vibrators.
I know you got something over there.
Yeah, so I have, okay, so I'll show you what not to use. This is a vibrator, right? It has, I don't even know if it's charged because I get sent these and I don't use them. So it does, yeah, it's not charged. So essentially it has an on and off switch. Oh, we can't get around these.
Okay.
This is basically, from what I remember, I've been sent a couple of these from different companies, but it's the same thing. It's like basically this goes on like this little, I don't know where the camera is
Right
there. This goes on to the clitoris and basically it like makes a sucking action and vibrating at the same time. If I remember correctly. Oh, there it is.
Okay.
It's not charged. The on button's inside here. So what happens is these things they're fast. It's like fast food, right? Fast food, what happens? You're hungry. You go through the drive-through, you get Del Taco or whatever. I don't eat fast food, so I don't even know. McDonald's, whatever people are eating. And you're like satiated and you eat it. And then you sort of kind of feel bad afterwards because the food isn't really food. Like they've done studies that showed if you leave that food out for a year, it's literally stays like that. Like it doesn't.
So this is the McDonald's of the pleasure.
This is the McDonald's of pleasure. So it's fast. You kind of feel weird afterwards and you just feel empty. It's like you're not getting full. But say you go to, I like using like Mastro's or like a steakhouse because I don't eat meat, but most people probably do. Like you have a really like lean, grass-fed, organic piece of steak. And then you have some like sweet potatoes or grounding, white potatoes, skin on, and you have a nice salad, some good fat, some avocados, good olive oil, right? That's like a very grounding meal, right? And you feel like satiated. And that's what a good climax will feel like for a woman when she's not using a vibrator when she's not having a clitoral stimulation or climax, right? So we want to move away from that as women. So the best toys, in my opinion, are like these kind of toys, which are, they're toys, but they're also healing properties. They have healing properties in them. So this is in the shape of a lingam, but I have ones that aren't. They have, different sizes, shapes, ribbed, not ribbed, squirrels, like swirl, all kinds of but they're all stone. So this is rose quartz, which we know brings more love, brings more healing, brings more surrender, acceptance, connection, all the things that you want to be invoked in your woman or in yourself. And these toys can be used anytime safely, because what happens with these vibrators, unfortunately, is they are the number one leading cause of women not being able to climax.
Interesting.
I believe that. And the stats kind of actually do go that way, because it just is just a fast and heavy up and down. So it makes you have the clitoral climax, but not internally. So again, your body connects, right? It doesn't understand. So it's like every time I get that vibrator on my clit, I can climax. But if it's not that vibrator, and I'm sorry, tongues do not rotate that way, or even if it's a vibrator internally, lingams don't vibrate that way. So then the body, remember the orgasm happens in the brain. So then the body is like, I don't understand how to relax into that pleasure, because all I know is this,
Sure, yeah.
And so, and then women can get only want to have sex with their vibrators or dildos. And that's, I think, extremely sad.
Interesting. Second question from the audience. How do I last longer without thinking about baseball or my grandma?
These are great. I love these questions. Whoever asked them, without baseball and my grandma. Why baseball? What's wrong with baseball?
No, I don't even know how baseball rule works. So
I know baseball is just okay. I guess it's boring. It is a slow game, but anyways.
Let's give him a short answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's try to wrap.
A practical one.
Try to give him a short answer. All right. First one that came to me is focusing on foreplay. That's kind of cool. Foreplay with your spouse or partner before. So if you are able to get her to have a release of energy, I don't know if she climaxes, but if you're able to help her reach climax first, or help her have some of her sexual energy release by doing oral on her or fingers or something like that for a long time, so that when you actually do enter into the yoni and have sexual intercourse, some of that sexual energy is dispersed and therefore it's not as strong, you will last longer. So a woman's energy, her body is very strong. Yeah. Most guys maybe haven't had sex in a while, or it's like they've been anticipating it, and as soon as they enter in the yoni, it's like basically over. They can't last for more than a couple minutes. It's just too much sexual energy. If the woman isn't doing sexual self-pleasure often enough, then all that energy just stays in the body. So I would say do foreplay on your girl first. Try to help her to have, even if it is a clitoral climax, it will disperse some of that energy and you'll have a better time of lasting longer. That's just one way. There's so many.
So making sure that she finish first.
Or releases some sexual energy before you even enter her. You'll have a much better time.
Yeah.
That's just one thing. There's so many though.
And you mentioned about, fingering. Is there any specific way that you suggest men to properly execute it?
Oh my God. I need a TED talk on this. Oh my gosh. Okay. Here's what I will say. And I always say the truth. Sometimes it hurts. Men overcompensates for dick size with their fingers.
Okay.
And you can't do that because a lot of times it's like a vengeance attached to it. I don't have a big dick, but I'm going to show you. It's like, bro, stop the madness, right? Calm down. So this part, it is definitely bio-individual, but I will tell you what doesn't work. Okay. Ramming and jamming fast like you see on porn and just doing this motion to try to find the quote G spot. It doesn't work like that. Yes, that is a part of finding the G-spot, but that comes after a buildup of some time to get to a point where she's like, yeah, it's there, keep going right there. You can't start off with that. And a lot of guys do. They're like, I'm just going to get in there and find it. Because that's, again, no fault. That's what you've been shown. So the part is you start slow, start very slow. A good rule of thumb for like my energy masters that train me is don't go faster than your breath. Start very slow. Go be creative. Go on the outside. The labia majora, the minora, go out lips, inside, go around, it's just like going inside and just going for the gold, if you will. It doesn't work because it doesn't work that way. I can't really give you a class on how it works, but I would say don't do that. Start slow, work your way around, and don't go in until her body is calling you in. That's a whole nother thing. You got to come to a retreat or work with me to get more details on that.
Love it. What's one challenge for men and women that they would like to transform their life, their sex life, and they can do a practical step tonight?
What is one challenge?
What's one challenge that you can... how would you challenge a couple tonight?
Challenge men or women?
Yeah, for men and women, like a couple.
Okay.
How would you challenge a couple?
I don't
tonight?
like doing the things that restrict, but what I will say is for the men, give up porn. Do it like everyone's doing these health things, diets, and do it 90 days. For women, the vibrator is 90 days. Both of you, go to the corners, time in. And then come back together and reinvent intimacy.
Love it.
So this looks like sitting together, breathing together, a lot of things that you'll learn if you get my book, which I literally give you like a step-by-step of almost everything we do in my retreat. Of course, it's not the same experience, but I'll show you some of the things. I show you these activities to do. So we're looking for the fast, cheap pleasure, and that's why we're left empty and wanting more. So when you take those, that's why I said, give up the porn, focus on the breathing and the connecting, things like this. And I give you the step-by-step exercises with pictures on how to do it to find and recreate, reinvent the intimacy.
Love it.
From good intimacy, you can have good sex, but rarely do you have great sex and then it just moves to intimacy.
Love it. What's the first mistake that you see the woman making bad?
Lying there, not doing anything. I'd say that's a huge one. And then not knowing what to do with the lingam in their mouth. Like teeth, kind of doing crazy stuff again that they've seen in porn, and also kind of not really wanting to give a blowjob, but doing it. Men feel that energy. And I think that's why sometimes men cheat, because they get a blowjob from someone and it's like the best thing of their life because this woman wants to do it. Even if she's not that good, she's like into it. She's trying. She's like, I want to give this to you. And then men love that. So I'm not saying to go cheat on your wife for that feeling or your girlfriend, but it's like, be the mistress for your husband. Like, come up with hoe energy for your husband. Like, give him a hoe blowjob and he won't go see a hoe, like those kind of things. So I think that's the biggest mistake. Women don't know what to do. At my retreat, we have little classes. We show you what to do. Little classes, how you put it in your mouth. We use props, all kinds of things like that. So it's first of all, finding a desire to do it. And I think for most women, they don't want to do it, especially once they are booed up or in a marriage. You got to find a way to want to do it. There's a lot of things that you can do. And then the technique after you're like, you want to do it, like be into it, get into it, show it. Cause for guys, it's all a fantasy, right? Yes. Someone who knows how to give a technical good BJ, it feels great. But if you have like no attachment to her and she gives you a technically good BJ, you're like, that was great. But if it's the woman you love, she might not have the best technique, but she has enough technique and the will and the want to please you. It'll send a man over the edge.
Interesting. Third question from the audience. If someone has never made their partner orgasm, should they even be in a relationship?
Of course they should. Oh, bless this person's heart. All right. So I'm guessing this is a man asking about a woman. Yes, you should be in a relationship, sweetheart. Most women, as I just told you, they're not experiencing real climax, just clitoral. It's not your fault. We have these nights where we just explore. We don't have sex, quote, if you will. It's just a night, and we teach these at the retreats, where it's like a time to connect and explore intimacy, but also sexual anatomy and pleasure. So when you do it that way, without it being in the confines of we're having sex now, and then someone says, I don't like that. That felt weird. Can you not do that? Could you? Egos get hurt. So you just take that out of the way and say, this is just exploring intimacy and sex tonight. We're not having it. We're just exploring. So it's not like you're in the act. So then you can start to explore her body, but honestly, she should be doing this without you too. And then it's like a class is in session now. The class tonight is exploring intimacy and sex. What feels good to you? And then it's like more mechanical. Oh yeah, I like this. Can you do this? And then the next time when you're actually having that sexual time together, sexy time, if you will, then you can start putting those things into practice. But if you do it in the heat of sex, it can be awkward and it can leave egos and men egos and sex. That's a bad mix.
That's great, because the first question from the audience is actually pretty similar to what you just said. First question: how do I tell my man he's not satisfying me without crushing his ego?
That's really good. So just expanding on what I just said is, it's not what you say, it's how you say it and when you say it. Timing is everything. I'm not saying endure it. If it's hurting you, then just say, honey, it's not working for me, but can I finish you off? If it's not working for you, I'm not saying your needs should go unmet. But why does he need to suffer? It's probably not his fault. First of all, it could be a trauma, or you just don't know your body, or you never showed him what feels good. So don't punish him. Would you like to finish? Can I help you finish? Do that. And then when that sexual time is over, at another time, say, hey, I saw something on this YouTube channel, or I saw this on something, and could we have a night where we just explore? Because I've been on the planet, for instance, 33 years, and my body is complex, way more complex than yours, your lingam, right? So I can't expect you to know what feels good. Frankly, I don't even know what feels good myself. Can we have this dialogue? Can we play this out together? And that way it can be easy. You can make it fun. There's no pressure, right? You don't even need to get erection. We can just use so you take the pressure off of it and go in with that. And then she has to be able to be willing to be explored and explore and share with him what works and what doesn't.
I love it. When is the right time to walk away from a relationship?
This is a great question. I was watching something yesterday that reminded me of everything that I tell my clients. I'll first say, I don't believe in divorce, and I don't believe in real divorce. I don't believe in staying in a relationship where there is physical violence. That is the absolute no. You have to leave. Or you might not be around to leave when you want to leave, really, truly. But I don't always think that you need to leave a relationship, because whenever you leave a relationship, you take yourself to the next relationship. And remember, we're creatures of patterns. We create our own, we keep following our same patterns and habits until we learn the lesson, until we break the pattern, until we grow. So if you want to save time, stay in that relationship and work on that pattern until you can solve it. So what I say is, if there's something, say, he's not meeting your needs, look honestly into your life and find out what his needs are and meet his needs implicitly. Most of the time women think, oh, I'm meeting his needs because I'm doing X, Y, and Z, but it's really nothing near what he really wants. Maybe he just wants to be acknowledged for the fact that he got an erection and was able to perform, or not really, but maybe he does. And maybe he wants to be acknowledged for all the hard work he does to provide for you and the children. And maybe you don't do that. You think you do other things means something to him, but it doesn't mean something, right? So find out what it is your partner needs and really do that for 90 days. Stay in it. Do that. And if he is a good, like a worthy Shiva, as I say, a man who's connected, directed, focused energy towards the divine, fully present towards you, he will figure out what your needs are and meet them. But if he's not, and you do everything you can, you give your all, it's 90 days, right? It's 90 days out of a lifetime. And he still doesn't meet your needs. I would say at that point, it's time to reevaluate, go seek outside help, see what you can do. From there, try it again. And if keep trying and trying. And if it's not working, then you leave. But with that, you leave being a better lover, a better partner, because you learned how to not worry about your needs, how to worry about his. And if that man wasn't able to meet your needs, you go into the relationship a better woman, a better lover, and you will attract someone who will, and vice versa. So I'm not for just leaving the relationship. Even with cheating, I don't think you should leave. I think it's a sign that there's work and healing to be done, unmet needs on both sides, and that you can recover. For a man, it is different if he has been cheated on. I think it is more challenging for a man to forgive a woman for cheating than a woman to forgive a man. I know that's probably a double standard, but that's just how it is.
I see your point. Fifth question for the audience. I am 30 years old, single, and I have a healthy sex drive. I enjoy casual sex, but sometimes I lose my erection, even when I'm really into it. What's going on?
Ooh, I like this one. Well, I would say his body is saying otherwise. He might say that he's enjoying it, but he's probably not fully enjoying it. Not that he's not having fun. I mean, yeah, it sounds like he's having fun. He's healthy, 30s, having casual sex. Cool. But there's something, remember, the erection happens in the brain. So does the climax. So there's something that's not connecting. I mean, I'd have to know his whole history. Is he addicted to porn? What's his diet like? Is he on medication? All these things, right? But if I were just to say intuitively, I would say it could be that he is wanting more. He is maybe wanting to go deeper with someone. The casual sex has gotten him far. He's in his 30s, but he's wanting more because we're human beings. We're the only really creature on the planet that has like sentient feelings, and we want to connect. We want to be loved, right? And so maybe his body is saying, yeah, I like the sex. I like the casual sex. It feels good, but I want more. That's just a thing. But I would say first, if he's watching porn, he has to ask that. And I would say that if he's really into it and then it's just going away, that leads me to think that there's something that's not quite adding up mentally. Like maybe he's not enjoying it as much as he thinks, right? Because she's hot, he's into it. It's like maybe there's a more, what's the more that's not being met? What's the need that he's still longing for? Because if you're into it, she's hot, you're having the erection, and then it's just over. Is that, or stress levels? He could check all that too. There's so many factors. Sure. These are just a few little tips that he could try. Now, we have exposed the myth. You give some real answer. Now let's leave people with the two hard truth. Okay. First one, what's the best piece of advice you ever received? You are... that I'll say it impersonally, that just I am not my past, that I'm what I choose to become and create. So I think that's a huge one for me, is that just because I've had a very intense past, that's not who I am. And what I do now and how I create and how I serve is because I've made this, right? I didn't just say, I'm going to be a victim, I'm going to take the easy road out. I'm going to, no, I said, I want better. I want more. I went and flew to another country. I lived there. I studied. I didn't work. I just wanted to heal and wanted to help others heal. It's an obsession, and maybe it's a good obsession. I don't know, but I won't stop because I know this is my mission. So you're not your past. You are who you choose to become, and a part of that is healing and doing the work. So I challenge them to do the same. Love it. After this podcast, people watch it hopefully until the end. If people
remember just one thing about you,
Yeah.
about this podcast,
Yeah.
what would you want it to be?
I get emotional when I think about this because it's that the most important relationship you have is with yourself. And if you can't be intimate with yourself, you can't be honest with yourself, you can't be vulnerable, you can't pleasure yourself, you can't make yourself laugh, you can't be alone and be happy, you're kidding yourself to think that you'll have that with someone else. And so that's why this path is very personal. It is very intimate. It's the path of evolution. It's the path of the ultimate union. And that's really with you. When you manage that relationship with you, then everything else will fall into place.
Love it. Jennelle, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate the conversation.
It's been outstanding.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you.